Joining me now to discuss Morgan Wright and Dan Bongino. And Morgan, you've got experience dealing with security at these sort of events.
Right.
What do you think is going to be the significant change now as opposed to the past?
Look, in 2012, and Charles and Dan, you guys, good to see you again. In 2012, I was down in Tampa and St. Pete for the RNC down there. There were a lot of challenges. There wasn't ISIS back then, but there was Anonymous. There were hacktivists, people that were targeting law enforcement in different ways. And if it hadn't been for a storm that came through, I mean, there would have been probably, 5 times the number of protesters that there were. But they planned a lot of those things out. You have to plan for things like how do officers survive during the day when it's going to be hot, it's going to be muggy, and then you have to be able to respond. You've got guys that have been in uniforms for 24 hours. So now you take Dallas and add on top of this the fact that the threats aren't just in front of you and behind you, but above you and can come from anywhere at any time. I'll tell you, as I've said before, this is not a situation I wish upon anybody, and I know Dan's got a lot of experience in this area as well, too.
Yeah, Dan, you do, and here's what I'm hearing, initially at least, that the police there are going to, sort of have a casual sort of look. They won't be wearing any sort of vest or visible extra protection. In other words, taking a very politically correct approach, not to look militaristic. Is that the wrong thing to do in this case?
Yeah, listen, the security has to come first, and I think appropriate attire to mitigate against a threat, including, the BDUs, the battle dress uniform, which just means a lot of pockets on your pants, the fancy way of saying it, is essential. But think about this, Charles. The Secret Service has to plan for a tactical assault, medical emergency, chem bio attack, IED, as Morgan said, an airborne assault, fire. Combine that with the threat of a mass protest in a security game where the allocation of police assets are zero-sum. In other words, if they're responding to a protest, they can't respond to a tactical assault. And you have a really toxic brew right now. I'd say the threat level is a bit below critical for the RNC.
There's a report out that the new Black Panther Party, Dan, is going to have some sort of a rally the day before the convention kicks off, and perhaps brandishing guns. It's an open carry state. How careful now do police officers around the country, but specifically, of course, in Cleveland, have to be now to be wooed into actions? In other words, they're going to be baited over and over again. Yeah,
I really hope they don't do that they don't bait these law enforcement officers. Listen, I'm a huge advocate for the Second Amendment. I think open carry is good legislation to pass. But just because you can do something, Charles, doesn't mean you should. This is clearly a heightened threat atmosphere there. They're really doing this to kind of egg people on. I think it's a big mistake, and the potential for someone getting hurt, sadly, is pretty significant if they don't handle this right.
Yeah, Morgan, same question to you, and also keep in mind, apparently there are areas already designated for protesting.
Right.
And my concern is what happens if people break through those protest areas or decide to make them up, because we know when crowds gather, these sort of makeshift areas happen. We've seen barricades come down at these events in the last couple of weeks. What happens then?
Look, I mean, as with anything like this, you have to find the leaders. Who are the leaders? You got to take those guys out very quickly. But going back to what Dan said, and look, I was talking with a law enforcement source in Ohio today, somebody who's with the police department. They actually pulled back officers. The cost, the manpower, they had to be able to police their own communities. There are several departments out there, Charles, that have pulled back people. So now you've got a reduction in the number of people. Maybe it's not significant, but after Dallas, every body on the street matters. And then when you add 1 or 2, all it takes is 1 or 2 people, and all it takes is one person firing a shot, and then you have to figure out where do the shots come from. Now everybody becomes a threat.
All right, well, let's just hope it's safe for everyone. Guys, thank you both very much for your expertise.